The earth belongs to all human beings. Migration took place in the past. Slavery followed it. There was no objection to the transfer of people from their countries to be exploited as slaves. The era of colonialism was ushered in after that. All those elements intermingle in the hearts and minds of the African people who migrate today. Everybody is up in arms against that migration. Colonialism gave Africans and other colonized peoples the impression that the earth belongs to all, and that no part of it is the exclusive property of a group of people and is forbidden to others. People in the heart of Africa saw Belgians come to settle in their land and own parts of it. They saw the whole of Congo become the personal property of Leopold. They saw foreigners settle in Zimbabwe, Malawi, and what they called Northern Rhodesia and Southern Rhodesia. Libya was considered Rome's fourth coast. This gave Libyans the feeling that Italy and Libya were one state. If Libya is Rome's fourth coast, why then is it forbidden for a Libyan to go to Italy? When it is necessary for Libya to be that fourth coast, war was waged to make it so. Now, what is said is, no, you are an illegal immigrant. You are not welcome here. You are a Libyan and you are a foreigner. Did you not say that Libya was your fourth coast? Was it acceptable then because it was in your interest, but now that it serves mine, it becomes unacceptable? Until recently, France maintained that Algeria was an integral part of French soil. France ruled Algeria for 130 years. France annexed Algeria in 1830 and declared an indivisible part of its territory. That fact convinced Algerians that they and France were parts of one whole. When they go to France, they go to their own country. How can it be said that Algerians, now that they are immigrants? How could they be? You said to us that Algeria was a part of France. When we tried to challenge that statement, you fought us. 1.5 million Algerians paid with their lives to challenge that statement. At the same time, France and Europe continued to insist that Algeria was an integral part of France. When they go to France, they go to their own country. How can it be said to Algerians now that they are immigrants? How could that be? You said to us that Algeria was a part of France. When we tried to challenge that statement, you fought us. 1.5 million Algerians paid their lives to challenge that statement. At the same time, France and Europe continued to insist that Algeria was an integral part of France. They convinced Algerians that they were French and Europeans, so why can they not go to France? Morocco is an independent state. It is a member of the Arab League, the UN, and the Islamic Conference. Ceuta and Melilla are geographically in Morocco, but they are a part of Spain. How can anybody convince a Moroccan that Spain and Morocco are not the same thing? He considers the two countries to be one. As I said in the case of Ceuta and Melilla proves that. How can Moroccans be told that they are aliens and immigrants in Spain? They should be able to go to Madrid like they go to Rabat. During the colonial era, the people of Africa were made to believe that Europe and Africa are an integrated whole. The King of Belgium was the owner of the whole of Congo. This being the case, then the Congolese, as the property of the King of Belgium, could go freely into the land of their king and owner. They could move to Belgium, live and work there as if they were in Congo. The same applied to Algerians in France. As their country was considered Rome's fourth coast, Libyans had the right to go to Rome. Citizens of Zambia, Zimbabwe, Malawi, and Rhodesia were told that their countries belonged to Britain. Therefore, they could go to Britain as if they were moving inside their own country. At one point in time, the Suez Canal was British. How can an Egyptian citizen be prevented from going to Britain while the latter owned a part of Egypt? How can he not be allowed to go to work or even to reside in Britain? If the Suez Canal, an integral part of Egypt, was the property of Britain, how could an Egyptian be denied the right to live in Britain? Which is graver, the recognition of the ownership by a foreign power of a whole canal that falls within the territory of Egypt, or the presence of some Egyptians who seek work in Britain? To this day, there are high commissioners of the British Crown in various countries. India was the jewel of the Crown. Then Indian citizens can go to Britain in their millions, since they are subject of the Crown. How can they be told that they are foreign immigrants? The First and Second World Wars were ignited by Europe. Tens of millions of men were killed in them. Europe needed labor, so Asians and Africans were encouraged to move to Europe to make up for the shortage in manpower. This fact is very important because it gave Africans and Asians the feeling that, in time of need, they can go to Europe. When Europe needed them, they were transferred. When they were needed as slaves, soldiers, and cheap labor, they were transferred. When Europe needed colonies, it came to their countries. It would be both ignorant and superficial on our part to ignore those historical and psychological accumulations. In addition, the colonial era resulted in the pillage of Africa's riches. The gold mines were depleted and left as gaping holes in the ground. Diamonds, copper, iron ore, cobalt, manganese, and phosphate were transferred to the old colonial powers. After achieving their so-called independence, people of the former colonies wanted to build their countries. They discovered that their riches were plundered. They had a feeling that they need to go after those riches. A French writer whose name escapes right now once said, "Either wealth comes to the people, or people will go to the place where wealth is found." This statement is true. Riches were transferred from Africa to Europe. Africans go after those riches of their land. They cannot restore those riches to these countries. So they go to work as laborers in the factories built on the riches of their continent. They feel that the road networks, the irrigation systems, and the railroad tracks that crisscross Europe and America are the fruit of the labor of their forefathers. They feel entitled to share of that prize. Can the raw materials of Africa be returned to it? If this is the case, then well and good. This must be the first decision to be made. Africans went to Europe seeking a share in their plundered wealth. If it were returned to them, migration would stop. They go back on their continent to find that their gold, diamonds, cola, and other materials have been returned to it. This would contribute to ending migration. The agricultural products of Africa, such as mango, pineapple, coca, coffee, and papaya, are made into shampoos and body lotions in Europe while Africans need them. Instead of Europeans washing their bodies with pineapple, let them return it to the children of Africa to eat. Or let us all go to Europe and use it to wash our hair and bodies. Who has turned nutritious foods into cosmetic products? It is the private sector. It seeks nothing but profit, even at the expense of the misery of millions. We hear a lot of talk about the need to encourage the private sector. However, it was that sector that stole the food of the hungry children and transformed it into cosmetic products for the sake of profit, while the children starved to death. Eggs, coca, milk, and all kinds of fruits were made into shampoos. Let us move now to some existing measures that actually favor migration. The purpose of your meeting is to address and reverse migration. However, there are some existing political and administrative measures that act against that purpose and favor migration. Let us take the Barcelona process. North Africa, the Middle East, Europe, and the Mediterranean are covered by that process. Therefore, a citizen under the umbrella of Barcelona, I am entitled to move to Europe. Has the Barcelona process not called for cooperation, the elimination of poverty, the freedom of the movement, and labor? Has it not advocated mutual help in living in peace with one another? Does it not aim at the creation of a single parliament and the harmonization of legislation, and the achievement of the similarities among its component parts? How can we be similar while you are rich and I am poor? I must become as rich as you are. Then you, as a European citizen, must allow me, an African citizen, to share your wealth. The Barcelona process has encouraged this line of thinking. How can you initiate that process, then decide to stand against its logical results? This meaning is against the spirit of Barcelona. The spirit calls for integration, for allowing us to move to Europe in our millions, and the Barcelona process. When that happens, you can say that Europe and Africa are two distinct entities separated by a sea. Yes, when that process is annulled, I will be convinced that we are two separate entities, not one. However, when you talk of the Euro-Mediterranean cooperation, you have included me in Europe. You make me in Libya a part of Europe. Under Barcelona, I am entitled to go all the way to Scandinavia. If this is unacceptable, then the contradictory process must be terminated.